Hey guys, welcome back to the Disciplined HQ podcast. I'm here with the one and only Alicia DuCote. Alicia, how are you?
Man, I'm great. It is a wonderful evening here on the farm, and I'm just sitting on the front porch, excited to just visit with you.
Me too. And this is super special just because we live in the same place. So I can appreciate, and I'm stunned that you're actually sitting outside right now in like the dead heat of Louisiana summer on the front porch. But props to you.
Listen, uh, it's actually a little bit of a break. I've been out working. We've got a farm here in Bossier City in North Louisiana, and just a little market garden farm. And I've been out working in the greenhouses and out in the garden and toting watermelons. And I just right now it's actually pleasant for me.
Well, good deal. Well, I can't wait to get into all that because you and your husband do have an amazing farm out there, and y'all have done, I don't know, just a great job of living the lifestyle that you preach. So, how we usually start this is a faith or fitness journey, and I think it'd be better to start with your faith journey just because your fitness journey is just expansive and academic and impressive altogether. So I feel like we're going to spend a lot more time there. But I know that, you know, having done life with you, that your faith journey is integral to this whole thing. And I definitely have some questions about how your faith is maybe strengthened by the things you've seen in your academic career. So could we just start with your faith journey?
Absolutely. Grew up in a wonderful household with amazing parents. And my mother had me in church every time the doors opened. Grew up in the Baptist church or the Cowboy church, or listen, it didn't matter if we were in a foreign country, we were going to church. That was just hands down. My dad did not, he was the high holidays
Okay.
type of attender. He came on Easter and Christmas. But my dad actually was more foundational in the formation of my faith in the way that he interacted and treated people. And so many people have come up to me throughout my life and just told me how my dad was responsible for them meeting Jesus.
Hmm.
And that just has always blown me away. And so I've emulated him more than anything else as a part of, like, saying it doesn't matter if I'm in church or I'm not in church. I, I'm just going to love people because God loved me and Jesus died for me. And therefore I'm going to extend that grace to absolutely everybody that comes into my path.
Hmm.
And I unfortunately lost my dad my senior year of high school. He died of cancer and very quickly, and actually changed my whole course of my life through his death. I grew up riding horses and showing horses and rodeoing and making it to the world show every year. And that was a huge part of my life. And also played basketball and was planning to go to college playing basketball. And um, through his death, I decided I needed to stay at home, being an only child, and take care of my mom and 200 head of cows and 50 head of horses and get a job and work and support, the whole thing on my shoulders, because that's what my
Hmm.
dad has done my whole life, is put everybody's weight on his shoulders and powered through and muscled through and taken care of everybody. So I was going to do the same thing. And in walked Lee into my life. And and he knew my dad when he was in high school and had many conversations with my dad, and it was very sweet that there was that connection between he and my dad. And when he passed away, Lee was really there. He was a rock, and he encouraged me. He said, your dad, his main focus was you going to college, and
Hmm.
you're going to go to college. And that's what I did. I went to college because that was just I was going to be the first graduate in our family to go to college, and that was really important to him. Uh, just an academic career, and I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do when I grew up, to be honest.
Yeah.
Not a clue. Lee has always been the youth minister, the youth pastor, the shepherd. Drug me kicking and streaming to like hang out with middle school kids, and I was actually at camp with middle school kids, and we lived in Tennessee. And I had the most profound encounter with Jesus, even though I grew up in this phenomenal Christian home and
Yeah.
believed in God and prayed and did check the boxes and did everything I was supposed to do. I didn't meet Jesus until I was 30 years old at camp with eighth grade girls.
So what was that experience like?
Oh, it was incredible. I didn't go to camp growing up. I had
Hmm.
a very atypical childhood. I did not go to sleepovers. I was always gone traveling, basketball camps, things like that. So I didn't go to like summer camp. I was very driven
Yeah.
individual and, you know, had goals and I'm going to reach the goals and I'm going to work hard. And so I didn't have a social life.
Yeah, and you came
And
from a farming family, so like I don't know if most people get that dynamic. Like growing up in Central Texas, like around those people, I definitely get that like type A attitude, and it's just like your summers are not for fun. Summers are when the money is made, and so like you
uh-huh.
power through. And so like I don't
Yes.
know, I feel like
Yeah.
a
And you
lot of
bale
people
hay.
don't get it. Yes, yes.
Have you ever been in a hayfield?
Oh yeah, that was I think the easiest way to make money growing up in we were outside of Waco, Texas, a tiny town called Clifton, Texas, but
Yeah.
walking behind the truck and just like as high schoolers just picking up bales of hay, putting them in the truck and then taking them to a silo and having to stack hay bales in a
Yeah.
silo. Oh, it is not easy work, but it's rewarding. And yeah, it's always during the summer. So like
Oh
the
yeah. And
most
the hot. And
oppressive
being in
time.
Waco is just as hot. Whew.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't. So my very first summer camp was being a leader and taking eighth grade girls. And I'd already been with them through seventh grade and eighth grade. And we're at camp. And, you know, just being at camp with kids is just, it is the most wonderful stress you can ever go through because you're responsible for all these human beings. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
B, they're trusting you with their deepest, darkest secrets, with, you know, looking up to you and want to know like why they're here and what is their
Mm.
purpose and does God really love me? And I just, I didn't get it so so explicitly like that until I was there with them and I'm listening to the speaker and the worship band, and it was just, we're in the mountains of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and it was incredible, and we're having solitude,
Mm.
and we were all laying, like they were all kind of laying on the grass, and I was kind of laying across this wooden bridge that was going over a creek, and we were all just kind of, you know, spread out. We're just having this 15-minute quiet solitude time. And right over us, it started raining. And the sun was
Wow.
shining. There was not a cloud in the sky. I'm not making this
Mm.
up because it was just us. And like, because no, all the other groups were, our cabin was kind of far. We called it the isolation cabin. We joked about it because we were the furthest ones out. And I said, well, if y'all weren't so bad, they wouldn't have to put us out there.
Oh
But
God.
it, I mean, we were all just looking at each other, just eyes this big, and just like, this is unreal. This is just unheard of. And that was just really the first time that I was like, okay, this is what it's all about. And that
Yeah.
just opened up my whole heart for adolescence, for kids.
Hmm.
and I don't know, maybe I'm living vicariously through them because I didn't have a normal childhood.
Yeah.
But I, I've always just, ever since, just had such a passion of being able to take kids to experience that kind of thing younger in life than,
Hmm.
wait until you're 30.
Well, you do a great job about that. And through this, so was this after college that you were working with the youth?
Yeah, we had
Okay.
moved to Tennessee.
Nice. And so when you went to college, what did you like initially go for? Because you said you didn't know like what you were going to do. So what did you start with?
So I actually started at Southern University because I knew a lady in financial aid, and she said, listen, it's close to home.
Hmm.
We'll work with you. We know you got a lot on your plate. Uh, she set me up financial aid, and just, I mean, it just literally just welcomed me in as part of the Southern family, and it was wonderful. And I grew up in a private, I'm just going to say, all white private Christian school.
Hmm.
So going to Southern was a big awakening, and I actually had a blast. But I started out in radiology and quickly decided I didn't like that. And then I was like, oh, well, medical terminology, because I really have like a knack for, Latin, and I really love medical, like reading all the medical stuff and all. And and then when I found out where they worked in the basement of the hospital, I was like, no, 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 can't handle that. And then Lee suggested, he said, why don't you go to centenary? And I went, I can't get in centenary. I'm not that smart. He went, um, no. He said, yes, you are. You're on the dean's list, and all this. And I don't know. I just, I have athlete brain. I just,
Mm,
I didn't study in high school. Let's just be honest.
yeah.
My
And so for the
sweet
folks who
darling.
and
Yeah.
so for the folks who don't know, Centenary is in Louisiana. So like it's the major Methodist college in Louisiana. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is. It is a Methodist liberal arts university,
Okay.
and I mean, just amazing. So I got to do like the sorority thing, and I
Mm,
found the athletic training department, or they found me because all the athletes are like, anyway. So I ended up, but I really had like this pull to the hospital at that time.
mm,
And so I ended up specializing in cardiac rehab, and my undergraduate degree was in health and exercise science with a cardiac rehab focus. But I was a student athletic trainer and traveled with the softball team the whole time I was at school, and just kind of felt like this, just a love between athletics and then working with people, in a
mm.
hospital setting.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense just because, like you said, your upbringing wasn't exactly tender. And so, like, being an athlete and able to relate to, like, those, you know, people who are in that kind of extreme field and, you know, living a athlete lifestyle, and then
Mm-hmm.
also having that nurturing personality to, provide that emotional support as well. So, I don't know, it's
Yes.
impressive.
Oh, thanks. I ended up having my math teacher as a cardiac patient.
Is he okay?
Uh, I, I mean, yeah, yeah, he was good. He was still as feisty as he was when I had him as a math teacher.
Yeesh. That's interesting. And so what was it like
So,
working with athletes? Like, were you interested in like fitness, or was it mostly just the exercise science and health aspect that you enjoyed?
oh gosh, um, I loved honestly, I loved the blood and the broken bones and the gore and the scrapes and the taking tweezers and picking gravel out of somebody's knee, and the bloody noses. And I know that's going to sound completely crazy, but I loved the um, kind of the, I'm very cool under pressure.
Mm.
And I figured that out at Centenary. I figured that out as a softball player. Threw her mask off to catch a fly ball, and her mask came down and split her lip from here to here, and you could see her teeth. And I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. And, I was like stuffing it with gauze, and she was like, we've got a double header. I'm not coming out of the game.
Mm.
I was like, okay, we'll just keep it, butterflied and keep it together and keep it dry, keep it clean. And rode with her, to the emergency room after the bus ride home.
That sounds like a tough
And,
chick.
oh, she was awesome. And, she got sewed up, and man, you can't even tell that there was a scar. It was a clean slit. There was no
Mm.
blood, it was a clean cut. But I was like, okay, the fact that I can think, I'm pretty good, like in this pressure cooker environment and keeping people calm. And I, I just got a knack for that. I mean, I love the
Mm.
training. I love the, the physical aspect. I love the mental aspect of sports. I love the physicality, but there's something about that action. I'm never
Mm.
bored. It's always something different. Always something different. Lee told me I should have been in sports medicine,
Well, you can always go back for another
but
degree.
well, I'm actually going back to get my doctorate right now. I'm in school. I'm a
Ooh,
school nerd. I don't think I'm ever going to graduate, but I'm getting my doctorate currently from Penn West University, where I got my master's. My master's focus was actually in sports performance and performance enhancement. So there's my sports
nice.
background. And my doctorate is in health science and wellness. I'll be a doctorate of health sciences, basically.
Mm. Yeah.
Some long, long terminology. I don't even know.
And so, I guess like through your academic career, what have you enjoyed the most about it? Because, like you've said, you've been someone who is just like rather. We talked before the podcast about how you would rather read a scientific journal than like a nonfiction book. So, like, what is it about that that draws you
Everything is changing. Everything is
in?
evolving. Uh, from the time that Bruce Lee back in the 70s started, mapping out the human form and looking at the way food interacts with muscles and systems and seeing things evolve. I find it fascinating. I'm getting older, and my degrees have, let's say, spanned out over the decades.
Hmm.
And I've been fortunate enough to um, see things sooner than the general public. I've been in some very amazing places and been very fortunate to be surrounded by extremely brilliant people, whether that's the people that wrote the NASM curriculum or the Sarah Cannon Cancer Institute at Vanderbilt University, or I mean, I recently just went to Italy to a global leadership summit for Techno Gym, and they supply the weight room for the
Oh
Olympics.
wow. Oh
They have done
wow.
it for years. So I was there with literally Olympic trainers, Team Nike trainers. Uh, One of my old college professors was there, and then just industry leaders. I, I just consider it so fortunate to be surrounded by these people who are so brilliant, and I get to glean their knowledge and then hopefully put it in good layman's terms to teach others things that I've learned on more of an academic level, but bring it down to where people can understand it on a day-to-day, everyday level.
Yeah. And so what did
Yeah.
you pick up there? Like what were they talking about with those like Olympic trainers? And you said Techno Gym?
Techno Gym, yes, it's the world's largest uh, fitness platform. Their home office is in Cesena, Italy, Cesana, Cesena, and they actually supply power to the entire town. It is such a cutting edge facility. Oh, it's just incredible. And they've made it to where their corporation and their whole facility, manufacturing and training facility is part of the landscape of the community. So the walking trails are around it are open to the public. The gym access is open to the public. They of course close it down when they have special events and special trainings like what I was able to go to. And I was there with people that I couldn't even speak the same language as them. There were people from Mumbai, from Saudi Arabia, from Italy, France, England, um, oh gosh, South Africa. I'm trying to think of the Dubai.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes, I met a
wow.
girl from Dubai. Yeah, I mean, just I met people from all over the world that just work with. I mean, across the board, from medical, uh, in hospital physical therapy type settings to sports performance. I met
Hmm.
Kyle Meadows. He is one
Oh,
of the he works for Nike. He's a team Nike trainer, and he's also a trainer for Techno Gym. And he's actually at the Paralympics right now. He's been in
oh,
Italy for the
wow.
Olympics, and he
Hmm.
trains a lot of the Paralympic athletes and for
Oh,
speed. So some of the,
yeah.
like the track runners that run on the blades and things
Hmm.
like that. So he was teaching us a lot of um, how some of the equipment is so easily accessible for people who are, you know, disabled in one way or another.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
I
did you
mean,
say
just
that Techno Gym like powers the town?
pretty much, yeah. So they've got all of their equipment hardwired into the facility itself. So they generate their own power through, all the cardio equipment.
It's like
And
when you're
so
running on a treadmill, it
yep,
powers or produces power?
yes. So METs,
Huh.
you're familiar with a metabolic equivalent and a
Yeah.
kilowatt.
Hmm.
So on all your equipment, you'll have those METs and then you'll have kilowatts generated. So on a bicycle or on a treadmill or elliptical or stair climber or, any of the numerous cardio, rowing machines, you can actually generate enough kilowatts to produce power. There's
Wow.
a
See, this is something I've really been thinking about because I always thought the perfect machine would be something like at least the perfect machine for like, bench pressing or rows or, lat pull downs or stuff like that would be something like an Aerodyne, kind of like what Technogen is talking
mm-hmm,
about. Like you're almost using or like you're building up that force to get to a place where it's so you're basically getting I don't know how to say it, but like you're exerting the effort that you're exerting is going to be your max effort, if that makes sense. So like if you're able, like an aerodyne, you can get going so fast, but like the stronger you get, the harder it gets.
right.
And so it's like you're building up your own resistance. And so is that kind of how the Technogym equipment works? Is like an aerodyne
some
where
some things. There's a few
okay,
like they've got a treadmill that is self propulsion.
okay,
So yes, you are 100% powering the treadmill. There's they have a new line that just came out. I'm not sure if it's even in the United States yet, but it uses um, almost like water. So if you think
mm,
about your selectorized equipment, like a seated chest press,
mm-hmm.
like what you're saying, the harder you push, the harder it resists. It's kind of
Yeah,
like what is that Newton's first law? For every action, there's an equal reaction.
mm-hmm.
So I remember, and this is so weird that they're coming out with this. I remember these hydraulic. Oh gosh, the one that was just like the terrorizing machine in our high school weight room was it had these two big pads, like red pads. You stood in it, and the pads
Mm-hmm.
went on your shoulders and had handles on the side, and then you had to jump against it basically. And the harder you
Ooh.
jump, the harder it pressed down. And it was those hydraulics
Mm.
in there that made it the resistance. So if you were really easy, it was really easy. And
Yes.
I mean, we would be bruised. I mean, we would have just bruises from that thing, but it made you so strong. I mean, because
Hmm.
of that type of resistance. And I really didn't mind it. I had good leg strength from riding horses. So, but um, yeah, your coach could always tell real quick if you were not giving your max effort because it
Hmm.
wasn't meeting the max resistance.
Yes. So it's like if you were going easy, you'd be able to just like go through it and you wouldn't stress that much. But oh, that does sound like an instrument of torture for sure. Like
For sure.
An aerodyne bike is just
Yeah.
hell on earth. For the harder you work it, the harder it works you.
Yes. I love a good aerodyne. And I like a good rowing machine too. Kind of that
Mm,
same thing. If you've ever got on a rower, I used to warm up all my clients on the rower, 5 minutes on the rower,
yeah.
full body warm up. And I mean, whew, it's a booger.
And so going back to college, were you said you traveled with the sports teams and stuff. What were, I guess, some of the athletic practices that you were involved in that you really enjoyed, like the training aspect of it, or were you nutrition?
So for my undergrad, I was strictly, let's just call it medical support. I really didn't do anything with like strength and conditioning or anything like that. After my master's degree, when we were living in Tennessee, I was working for the YMCA and actually was fortunate enough to work with a couple of the Tennessee Titans and
Whoa.
was working with some O linemen and working with some of their trainers to come up with an off-season program that would be beneficial, that they didn't have to completely stop training but also allow them an opportunity to recover while still progressing. Um, my brain just died. You know, progressing. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I actually developed an aquatic personal training program where I was putting these athletes, these 300 pounds, 6, 7 guys in the pool and
Oh,
utilizing weights, tubing, kettlebells, uh, different types of elastic bands in the water to actually have them in a recovery type environment while
hmm.
their muscles could actually get stronger. So it took weight off of their actual skeletal structure, their bones, their knees, their back, their hips, there's all these high injury places.
Yeah.
And that was part of my master's thesis was using water as a training aid for athletes, and loved it. That I mean, just enjoyed that immensely, and ended up spilling back over into the medical side. I developed a program for people with fibromyalgia, and I worked with the Arthritis Foundation, and we had a heated pool, and I was able to basically parlay that information and that education I was getting with the athletes into people with autoimmune
Hmm.
disorders and develop a program for them where they could actually get in the water and work out longer
Hmm.
than what was like previously prescribed for
Yeah.
them, because usually it's 20 minutes. You don't go over 20 minutes. It's very light intensity, kind of mid-range rep uh,
Yeah.
repetitions. And by putting them in that water, they were able to move more fluidly, have greater range of motion, and it actually benefited them, in especially their trigger points where they were hurting, whether that was spine or shoulder or hip or different things like that. I was able to relieve that pain that they were going through. So
Yeah.
ended up leaving the Y with that water program in place, and I just absolutely love that.
Yeah, and I love that. So with the offensive lineman, how do you, I guess, get that resistance in the pool? Because I mean, it does make sense to have them like you get them in the water, and it's like it suspends their joints, so it takes all that pressure off. So
Hmm.
how do you then like apply resistance while in the water?
Okay. So, so I would have them in the lap pool. So you have lanes in the lap
Mhm.
pool, and it's really only about 4 foot of water. So they're not completely submerged, so their feet still on the bottom. And then we would utilize the hooks on the end. And I'm sure you've seen them. Usually they'll have like in like Perform Better and some of this magazines, they'll have these different like with the parachutes, it provides
Mhm.
drag, when you're running
Yeah.
and you just provide
Mhm.
drag. Okay, so I basically so okay, I went to Tractor Supply and I got some big black rubber bungee cords and I made
Okay.
my own resistance bands. We had levels of resistance. So you just hooked them in, hooked them on the belt, and then he would just jog, just run down the pool and then
Huh.
resist coming back. And then we could turn and then back pedal and then have it like pulling. So he's resisting it's basically deceleration. So we're working on
Mhm.
deceleration, which actually prevents a lot of ACL, knee, um, ankle, lower leg injuries when you can get
Mhm.
that deceleration. Then, we would have him basically walking, with kettlebells, weighted dumbbells in the water.
Mhm.
Then just doing basic wind sprints, because the water, have you ever tried to run in water?
Yes. Not easy.
It's natural resistance.
That's so you
It's,
would have them like sprint in 4 feet of water.
yep,
That's crazy.
yep.
I mean, it's genius. Like it's so simple, but it
I know,
is
right?
genius because it's like you're getting that same effort of like sprinting, but
Mm-hmm,
the impact on your joints is probably like, 20%
mm-hmm.
compared to like, actually having your legs and feet pound the pavement to so was there like ever an off ramp that they needed to take? Like were they ever adapting or I guess a point of diminishing returns. Like they get out of the pool and then like maybe their tendons aren't as strong because now they haven't had that contact with the ground.
No, because we used it in such a window of time. So season ends January, depends on if you make the playoffs. We'll just say the Titans did not make the playoffs that far that year. So, mid January, February, I think February we started, February to March. So that 4 weeks we were in the pool and it was able to actually allow these guys to actually heal. They
Mm-hmm.
had so many strains and tears and, the body had been beat down and uh, from like a long season, but yet they weren't in a suspended state where they weren't being active. Usually they go sit on the beach or, they sit for a month just to get their body to heal enough so that they can start training in the spring. Well, you've
Yeah.
already lost a good 2 months. And I don't know if you've ever stopped training for a couple of months and then tried to start back.
Yeah.
It's tough. And when
Mm-hmm.
you're, 20 to 30 and you're still developing, especially men, you really they're not you're really not fully grown until what, 22, 23, and then you're still developing even into your late 20s.
Yeah. Tell that to a
You're
high schooler though.
Oh, I've had that conversation a lot. I get very heated with high school strength and conditioning coaches because they are ruining our kids. And there's
Mm,
so many better ways to train our kids, especially football players. So many alternative, better methods than, loading their spine, compressing those discs, giving
mm,
them knee, hip, ankle injuries just right and left. Not to mention all the neck problems that they're going to have when they're older and spinal problems, and
Is
the
that from the
list is
back
the
squats
list is
or?
long.
Yeah.
You can't load a spine that is still trying to grow,
That makes sense.
you know? I mean, it's trying to go this way and you're forcing it down this way.
Yeah,
It's
that
just
does seem like
asking
kind
for
of, yeah, it seems
counter
contradictory to
counterintuitive.
have, yeah, because like you want your high schooler to have like the, you know, viral back squat of like 600 pounds, but at the same time, it's like that kid's still trying to grow. So like you said,
Yeah,
there's
let's
like
think about this.
two
What's
competing
the
forces. Yeah.
exactly? And one is going to win. And I've seen
Hmm.
too many kids, their sports careers over because, I mean, they're just, I've literally seen kids with broken backs, with fractures in their spine, with neck uh, issue. I mean, and then not to mention just the knees and uh, don't get me started on that. My goodness, because
So would
there's
that water recovery be good for high school athletes as well?
yeah. I, so when I moved to Arkansas, uh, went to work for Young Life. Actually surrendered to the ministry full time,
Okay.
and uh, oh golly, I was there probably 3 or 4 months, and the high school football team, their athletic trainer, quit
Mm.
2 weeks into the school year. So right before football season's going to start. And of course, Lee, being, already friends with the football coach, said, well, my wife can tape if you need help taping until you find somebody. And so he talked to me and found out my background and said, will you talk to the head physical therapist who's over all the athletic trainers for the state. So I went with the football coach to meet him, and he actually told me I was overqualified and I could just
Eh?
work with the team. So for 5 years, I worked with all the high school sports teams at our local high school where I actually did ministry and
Nice.
was very fortunate that I actually got to use a lot of my brain and try out like a lot of different things on all these athletes because I got to work directly with them actually
Hmm.
on their training programs. Uh, the coach actually had me coming in running Saturday practices. So they
Oh
would be in the
wow.
office looking film. I would have the entire football team by myself, but it was great because they would let their guard down a little bit with me, and I could put them through a series of recovery work where I could actually look at them and be like, okay, his hips, something's wrong with his hip. He's short striding. He's got a hamstring that's tight. He's given to an ankle. Like I could pick up on their injuries super quick by looking at all their body mechanics and how they were, just jogging through a mile, how they were doing their stretches, how they were, interacting. And it allowed me to be able to say, okay, coach, this is who I need Monday before practice.
Yeah.
And, I'd either keep them for a little bit Saturday and, work it up or whatever. Or, I mean, I even caught a couple of concussions from Saturday practice
Wow.
that I was able to catch. Kids just weren't acting right, and
Ooh.
put them through concussion protocol and was like, yeah, you know, so and so's concussed. He's got to start protocol. And I'd send him to, I'd call the doctor, our team physician, and be like, hey, I need you to look at so and so. And he'd get him in and, that quick and look at him. And he told me that I was pretty dang accurate. I'm not supposed to diagnose. I never did diagnose a kid.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna go outside of my scope of practice. I'm not gonna do that. But just being around enough kids and around enough athletes and around enough, especially the medical community, and I was also a BLS instructor and first aid instructor and all, and so I was able to really pick up and be like, okay, you need to go see the chiropractor You need to go see the team physician. You need to see the ortho. So I was able to get them where they needed to go
Yeah.
and make it more efficient than just, just, oh, he goes to see the team doctor. No, then he refers him, and then, it saved a lot of time.
I'm
So
sure.
coach really appreciated that. But I also got to do a lot of uh, prehab. Are you familiar with prehabilitation?
Yes,
Prehab?
not a ton, but yeah, definitely if you could explain for people who wouldn't know.
Yeah. So prehab is a way of injury prevention for athletes that, say, volleyball players, they're going to have a high rate of ankle injuries and possibly shin splints from the way their activity is. So I would take the volleyball team to the beach. We had a we had a gorgeous beach on the lake, and just anyway, I'd put them in deep sand, and I would
Hmm.
do 2 weeks of conditioning with them in deep sand, to barefoot
Hmm.
deep sand. Um, we saw over the years, we saw ankle injuries, shin splints, even knee injuries decrease by like 80%. They were almost non-existent. I mean, it had to be
Wow.
a really rough, um, landing or collision, or, something really, really crazy, but we just didn't have it. My
Hmm.
football team, the teachers were like, "Why are all the boys tapping their toes in class?" And I was like, "Oh, I told them to do that." I would have them doing stuff like while they were sitting at the desk, doing toe raises to build up the anterior tibialis to prevent them from getting shin splints.
Hmm.
Um,
And
I'd
so for the
have them
girls
do.
in beach volleyball, like what was, I think I kind of know why the barefoot in sand, but like, can you, I guess, walk through why barefoot in sand to prevent shin splints and those injuries?
So, yeah, it's just like if you're barefooted and running fairways, like golf. A lot of track, a lot of runners will run barefoot in like grass.
Hmm.
So when the foot is stationary and it's confined in a shoe, not every supporting tendon and ligament is working.
Hmm.
So the basically anatomically everything's breaking down. And it always starts in the feet when you're looking at the kinesthetic chain. So if you can basically utilize, I mean, honestly, the way God made us, I mean, not with all the shoes and the cushionings and the hokas and the,
Oh
I
gosh,
mean, the
hope.
more you can
Oh.
actually, oh, I've got my hokas on right now, so don't judge. I don't judge. Um, I'm not judging at all. But the more you can actually use the body the way it was naturally developed to use, then the more your injury risk decreases,
Hmm.
and it decreases on the front end. So the ankle is able to flex and extend and rotate. We're so worried about keeping our ankle straight
Yeah.
and not rolling side to side. Well, that rolling side to side motion actually strengthens everything that keeps it from rolling side to side.
Yes, it makes sense.
I mean, God didn't make us flawed. I mean, so we've gotten so away, and that was like a big thing that I learned. I know I'm going to sound crazy, but from Bruce Lee, when you study all those old, especially like martial artists and um, yeah, we're Western, Eastern medicine, and how the body works together as one unit.
Hmm.
Um, I loved learning during my master's. We were able to really break down a lot of kinesiology and human movement science, and look at how the body moves and how it's linked, and that knee pain 90% of the time isn't localized in the knee. it's
Mm.
from the foot, or it's from the spine. Uh, like, you have to look at the body as a whole
Yeah.
to understand why a certain part of it is hurting.
Mm. That makes sense.
So if your hips are, say, say if your spine is, not completely in alignment, and your hips are a little bit adjusted one way or another, then you're gonna feel it in your knees, and you're gonna feel it in your ankles before you feel it in your hips and in your back.
Hmm. So, because it's like sending that, or the foundation isn't supporting what's necessary for up top, and so does it like work from the bottom up?
It can go both ways. It can go both
Okay.
ways. You gotta look at your spine and your hips, but a lot of knee problems can actually be, you know, from the feet, especially
Hmm.
runners, people that run a lot. If their shoes are not fitted specifically for, if they're pronating or supinating, or, it can actually cause a lot of knee pain, can cause a lot of hip pain.
Yeah.
So it's, you, you just have to treat the body as a whole entity, and use it like it's a whole entity. That's why
Hmm.
functional fitness became such a trend.
It is. That's
Because
so funny. Like,
sitting
imagine using
sitting
your
on the
body.
oh yeah, sitting on the selectorized machine doing a chest press doesn't help you get the dishes out of the dishwasher and put them up into the cabinet.
Hmm. I love it. And so, going back to the high school training, what was some of the strength and conditioning stuff you were able to help them with to, from what you knew, like reduce those injury potentials? Like when
uh,
in the weight room specifically.
so I developed, so my main function was actually developing the programs that they did before they got in the weight room with the strength and conditioning coach. So again, those prehab programs. So like for pitchers,
Hmm.
baseball players, I had a whole shoulder thing that they did, shoulder, upper body, uh, utilizing either a band or no weights. I don't know if have you ever done like your YWLs. It's a shoulder. You learn it in physical therapy,
Hmm.
but you don't have to get injured to utilize these exercises. They're great for preventing injury. But
Yeah.
you can lay on a table and, keep with your top half off the table. So, from chest, shoulders free to move. And, or you can do it over like a ball, like a Swiss ball,
Okay.
either way. But you essentially want to, I'm going to try to do this. Bring your thumbs
Yeah.
together. So it's all in the thumbs. Arms straight. And so if you're laying there, your hands are down to the ground. You would raise just your arms up into a Y. Okay. So you're going just that Y, and
Hmm.
you would do 10 of those, and then turn the thumbs in, and then do 10 W's. And it's scapular rotation. Okay.
Oh.
And then you come out and you're in, hang on, internal, external rotation here. And so we start no
Oh.
weights. We work to tubing, using tubing to do the exercises. And then we work up to doing literally like 3 pound weights. I mean, I used to have bodybuilders, like big old beefy guys, would take their little, they called them their little sissy weights, their little 1 pound dumbbells, and they would go in the personal training office to hide from everybody so they didn't see them doing their YWLs with their 1 pound weight.
I believe it. That pride is a real thing.
It's a real thing. But when you're using those supporting muscles, they're not prime movers. They're not biceps and triceps. They're the ones
Hmm.
that are supporting your biceps and the triceps. but they need as much or more attention than the bicep or the tricep because they're the ones that are holding joints where they're supposed to be,
Hmm.
holding, the skeleton where it's supposed to be. So I did baseball, uh, football, the volleyball team, uh, oh, track, a lot of track, a lot of runners, a lot of runners, working through just big range of motion activities. They used to host a camp, our little school in Arkansas. They were quite the track team. They were really good, state champions every year. Our coaches were phenomenal, but I mean, phenomenal coaches, but they would still have me come out to their training camp that everybody would come to and do, this is pre-ab. This is what you need to do to keep from getting shin splints, keep from getting stress fractures, keep from getting overuse injuries.
Hmm.
So I ended up being like the injury prevention guru. And then I saw them on the other end when they were injured. And then I just helped, coaches are like, okay, I've got this kid that's doing this. Like, what do I need to do? Their range of motion, or they're not getting any strength gains, or and then I would end up talking to the kid and being like, what's your diet like?
Hmm.
You're not getting where you're supposed to get. Start telling me about your life. I was like a counselor, I don't know. And so I was able to kind of get to the bottom of some things that the coaches weren't understanding. They just knew that they're supposed to be here in the pyramid and they're not there in the pyramid. And I'm like, okay, I'll figure it out. It's like being a detective.
Right? Because I guess like at that level, they're not looking at, like you said, the coaches aren't looking at the kid's diet to see like, okay, he's doing the work he's supposed to, but he's not progressing. And he's not
Yeah.
progressing because he doesn't have, literally does not have the energy to do more. Like his body's capped out at what he's eating right now.
Yes. And so here's my doctoral thesis. This is what I'm studying right now. Injury prevention. I've become a guru for injury prevention, but it's linked to the gut microbiota and the consumption of ultra processed foods.
Hmm.
So I'm finding a lot of research more in Europe, a lot of Brazilian, Australian, England is doing a lot of research with their soccer teams, football teams, football teams, with food and how it links to injury prevention.
Really?
And yes, because there's a and hopefully, I mean, this is what I'm setting out to prove, that there's such a huge link between our ultra processed foods. It's all created in a lab. There's nothing natural. It's devoid of nutrients. I mean, it's actually leading to a reduction of certain hormones, especially in young boys,
Hmm.
because of the soy in the
Mm-hmm.
food. Okay, soy is a natural estrogen producer, so it obviously is going to counteract testosterone,
Mm-hmm.
and also it's leading to a lot more, honestly, anxiety and depression and mental disorders with our adolescent population. And when you start disrupting all the systems, it really does lead to developmental issues, and that's the link I'm hoping to piece together, is that link between human
Yeah.
development, and that ultra processed foods, and how it is actually causing more injuries. Because, like, there's been studies done now on, like, okay, take chicken for instance.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually, uh, when you look at a, a I got my chickens, they're over there in the coop. when you take one of those chickens and I don't kill my chickens, I just
I
eat
was
their
about to
eggs.
say,
But
I'm sure they're a
anyway,
little nervous hearing this right now.
no, no, I don't kill my chickens. But if you were to kill one of my chickens and look at its breast, it would be breast meat. It would be almost a nice, almost a pink hue, a good, it would look like meat, like you could see blood and, it would still be lean, white meat,
Hmm.
but it would be extremely lean, but it would still be full of, like blood and, meat fibers.
Yeah.
I don't know. It would look like muscular fibers. It is a
Hmm.
pectoral muscle. So now they're doing some food studies now on the this mass produced chicken that we get at the supermarket. It's actually higher in fat. The chicken breast is higher in fat. It's devoid of minerals and of iron and vitamin D, from sunlight,
Hmm.
animals being outside. And it almost has a gritty texture now. Like if you cut across a free range chicken breast, you could actually, it would
Hmm.
still look like a muscle. You cut across a processed chicken and it doesn't even look like real meat anymore almost because they're so mass produced in a, just the way chicken's produced.
Yeah.
Environment, artificial lights, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so, I mean, what you eat really, really does lead to overall health and human development. So if you're not eating things that are actually good for you, I
Hmm.
mean, where does that go? I mean,
Yeah.
you either if if your body can't process that all, it your liver can only process so much a day,
Hmm.
and your kidneys and everything else, and the body is extremely efficient. What it cannot produce, it's gonna like store until it can get to it and
Yeah.
and no, anyway, filter that out of your system. Well, when you're constantly bombarding your system with more and more and more, I'm going to call them toxins, just
Yeah.
artificial foods, your high fructose corn syrup, your, uh, I mean, all the things that your body naturally can't digest, it's just going to keep storing it. And the body stores it around your cellulite.
Hmm.
So it stores it it almost makes like water. And it's, I've actually, so I've seen this. It's gross. It's so gross. I've actually seen people when I worked at the gym, uh, get off of like processed foods and cokes and, um, like just a lot of chemicals and a lot of stuff, and their skin would almost turn gray, and they would smell horrible. And of course, like all the physical symptoms are headaches, they're sweating, because they're the body's actually pulling all that toxic water out to excrete it.
Yeah.
And we actually ended up, the medical community actually ended up having to tell people to be so careful when they were doing like juice cleanses and fasting and trying to like pull all this stuff out of their body, because I mean it was actually making them sick.
Mm. Right,
And it
because
was
their
it was
body was having to go through and
crazy.
process what's been stored that whole time.
Yes, yes, and it was insane. I could not even get over like just just the shock value of it. It blew me away. I was just like, this is crazy. Um,
Mm.
yeah. So I mean, what we eat has such a direct effect on our body. Such a direct
Yeah.
effect.
And I was going to ask you about like veganism. So, is veganism a good way to go for athletes? Because you've seen, I don't know, it was a fad for a while. I tried it, was
Not a
definitely
fad.
not for me. Yeah.
Yeah, not a fad. Not a fad. I do believe that it does work for some people. Um, and I'm doing a lot of saying I'm not a nutritionist by any means, but I did take a plant-based sports nutrition course. And I'm actually taking some nutrition courses through my doctorate program also now. So I'm not a nutrition expert by any means, but what I found working with clients is you've got to eat for your system.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people, like they got to have carbs. They cannot function. Their brain cannot literally function without carbs. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
some people have to have meat. They just do. They are meatitarians. I am one of those people that I cannot process meat. I
Mm.
tried my darndest because, that's what they teach you. You should have your chicken breast and your broccoli and your brown rice, and this is the healthy plate. And I would stay sick. I stayed sick for years and I've never drank Cokes in my life. Uh, I'm a water drinker and beer and wine. That's, but
Because it's water too.
it's basically water. It's fruit grains, anyway. Um, but just I don't drink sodas. I don't drink sweet tea. I don't drink sugar in my. I drink black coffee. I don't drink lattes and things like that. And I was like, why am I sick? I ended up in the hospital a few times, just and actually for Lent. So Lent one year, I was like, kind of on that link of like, I just kind of want to let's give up meat for Lent.
Mm.
And I felt better than I've ever felt in my entire life. I mean,
Wow.
my skin cleared up. I'd had acne my whole life. I've never got rid of my back knee, and I was like, well, it's gym problems, I work out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have, yeah, I don't know. I gave up meat and I never went back to eating it. Now, I will eat some bacon. I love, can't give up bacon. Listen, it's
Right.
just, I don't even think it's meat. It's just heaven on a plate. But and I'll eat some venison.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't bother me to eat some venison, 8 eggs, 8 fish. So I'm basically an ovo pescatarian with a side of bacon. But my body doesn't like meat.
Mm.
You and even my husband, Lee, like you put them on a vegetarian diet and he's just sick. He just feels
I know.
terrible.
It was the
Terrible.
worst. I did it for probably 3 weeks. I went as close to plant-based as I could, and I have never felt more bloated or uncomfortable in my life than those
Yeah.
2 to 3 weeks.
I read a book one time. It was called Eat for Your Blood Type. And
Mm.
I really do think that there's something to that. I believe that you got to find what works for you. Now, I have
Mm-hmm.
seen all the tests. I've seen all the tests. I've seen all the scientific studies. I see how the serum cholesterol is lower. I've actually reversed people's diabetes and high blood pressure through their diet. My mother was a big one. No pre-existing conditions. Just all of a sudden woke up and had high blood pressure. And I
Mm.
put her on a very strict vegan diet. And she is now 100% off meds. She swears she's never going back to her old diet because she's felt better than she's felt in decades.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, she'll slip some salmon in there. And I think she might even go to Taco Bell and get get some fast food every once in a while. But listen, she brings her own unsalted chips to the restaurant.
Wow.
She is so strict about it now, and I'm just like, good grief! I was just trying to help you reduce your blood pressure. I didn't mean for it to be a major lifestyle change. And she said, no. She said I feel great. So I really
Yeah.
believe there is something to um to that. You gotta eat what makes you feel good, but also you have to be very careful what you eat because
Mm-hmm.
um food has the power to heal, and food also has the power to destroy.
Hmm.
As
Yeah.
we get older, especially as we get older, hormone production starts slowing down, which naturally leads to an increase in cholesterol. Doesn't matter your diet. So you do kind of have to be more careful
Hmm.
with what, with your diet. You've got to play with it. At certain life stages, you need higher amounts of iron. You need higher amounts of protein. You need higher amounts of, calcium. But then at other stages of life, you don't. And that's where, going to your doctor regularly, getting your blood work done regularly, getting your, metabolic panels done, exercise testing, huge, huge. I'm a junkie, like for, you know, exercise testing and, body fat testing. And, you can be technically the same size and wear the same clothes, but have a major shift in the amount of muscle to body fat.
Yeah. And so I guess keeping in that, we'll, or I wanted to acknowledge the fact that you and Lee do live on a farm, have heritage tomatoes, heritage pigs, and are the chickens heritage as well? Or
Somewhat. We so our pigs actually found a new home. They're
oh no.
yeah, we're not equipped for the breeding and sustaining of pigs. We have a rescue pony now.
Oh, nice.
So I've always dabbled, had my own herbs or had a little, tomato growing in a pot on my porch or whatever. But one thing about living in Arkansas and living in Tennessee is we had access to
Mm,
unbelievably just abundant produce, and everybody was making their own products, and farmers markets were all, their own stuff. And I mean, just listen, we ate so good and ate locally and believe in eating locally and believe in eating seasonally.
mm-hmm.
Um, when we moved back to Louisiana, we were extremely disappointed. We are an agriculture state, we are a food state, and you can't eat healthy here.
No.
And during COVID, when we're stuck here looking at our 5 acres, and Lee said, "Hey, we could just turn the whole thing into a garden." And I told him he was crazy. But I'm like, you know what? That's actually a really good idea, because Lord knows I'm not eating anything healthy.
Mm,
And from that, I actually led into a 4-part docuseries that I did for Amazon Prime. It's called Chasing Clean Food, because in putting in our market garden, I'm not as good of a trial and error kind of person. I want to go, I want to see how it's done. I want to learn exactly what I'm supposed to do and come back and do it right the first time.
hmm. Which is kind of opposite of Lee. He's more of just like to break things and see what works.
Absolutely. He's like the guy that, invents things because he figures out the 359 ways not to make a light bulb. I mean, me, I'm like, no, teach me how to make a light bulb and I will do it. I'm a creature of process. And so I'm reading all the books and doing all this, and I start reaching out to all these farms, all these Instagram people, you follow, uh, and people that we knew in the area, and Lee, being the guy that he is, very creative and very inventive, and he's like, "Hey, well, we might as well shoot this and turn it into a docuseries." I'm like, "Oh gosh." I'm like, "All right." I'm like, "All right." Anyway, so that ended up being a thing, and so it's me going to all the different farms, and there's the protein, chickens. How is chickens raised? How are eggs produced? How is feed made for the animals?
Mm,
Where do seeds come from? What seeds should you be planting in your garden? And that led us to heritage and heritage breeds, and how, like we learned this primarily from the rose industry. You got hybrids everywhere. Nothing wrong with a hybrid. You're
hmm.
breeding for, for scent or for color. But every time you breed for one thing, say if you are breeding for fragrance, you're losing either disease resistance, or you may be losing, color, or you've got to lose something in the hybridization process to create something different.
Yeah.
So when you look at a lot of the vegetable seeds on the market today, you see hybrid, which means there's something in them is going to be, more predisposed to disease or to, you know, I don't know, different things. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, and so you may have to spray more chemicals on them. And one thing we learned is if you do things heritage, like the heritage cows, you don't have to worm them every 3 weeks or, you know, give them all these different inoculations because they're naturally immune to diseases because they've been here forever.
Yeah. And
Same
so I
thing
guess
with the
could you
seeds.
explain the difference between like heritage and heirloom seeds and like the rest? Like you kind of just did, but I guess could you
Yeah,
lay it out like what the difference is?
absolutely. So heirloom means that it has not been altered. And I think it's something like 15, 20 years. Like it's a very long period of time. There's actually a few hybrid seeds who are now considered heirloom seeds because they have not altered that DNA in many, many, many years. Um, However, like a true uh, heirloom seed, for example, watermelons. Okay, like watermelons naturally had seeds in them. And now, we're breeding them to not have seeds in them, which I tend to think, okay, if they don't have seeds, how are you getting more watermelons? But anyway,
That's a
I
great question.
have questions. I question things. I question things. But that seed is going to be the same and it's going to produce the same fruit and be reliable for years and years to come. You know that once you buy one packet of seeds, you can actually save your seeds from that fruit and you actually never have to buy another packet of seeds.
Hmm.
Now, sometimes you can get cross contamination within the garden, if you're not
Hmm.
really being careful on what you're saving. But heirloom just means that they have been not altered in any way for I don't even think it's like 50 years. It's a long, long time. There's seed banks in 3 different places throughout the world where they just keep seeds
Hmm.
in a cryo freezer. And some of these seeds are, like they're banked in some of the seeds we're using. Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds, he was part of our documentary. It's where we get all of our seeds from. He actually went to, golly, I think every continent gathering heirloom seeds. Like I grow pink Okinawan okra.
Huh.
Here in Louisiana, we typically know okra is green, and that's it. But they
Yeah.
actually make red okra, orange okra, pink okra. The pink Okinawan is actually considered a superfood. They grow it exclusively on the island of Okinawa. He brought those
Wow.
seeds back. The catalog is, oh my gosh, it's 2 inches thick every year, and I just sit there and my mouth waters. I'm thinking, oh my, we haven't even scraped the surface. Everybody even tends to be like I'm growing white um, cucumbers right now. They're called oh, what are they called? They're white dragon's egg cucumbers.
Oh,
They're from
fun
Asia,
name.
and I know they're fat and they're round. And I actually thought they were an eggplant at first, but I was like, oh, it's a cucumber. Well, I planted them next to the eggplants, but anyway, they didn't grow. But I grow fun, funky things that like nobody, they're like shaking their head like, well, that's not natural. I'm like, no, it's not natural Louisiana, but hey, guess what? I get seeds from like other countries. I was watching Martha Stewart and she does the same thing. Like she goes to other countries and she
Oh.
gets her seeds and bring them back and plants them in her greenhouse. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, like if she does it, it's going to be okay. Um,
Yeah, right.
heritage just means it's really a terminology used with animals more. The heritage breeds have not been crossbred at all. That means they are the exact same genetic makeup as God created them way back when. There's very few left. One of the most prominent and fun ones that you may have, that is everybody has heard of, is Wagyu. You know, the beef, the
Yes.
cow.
Hmm.
You know, you pay like $200 for a steak. Um, and I'm very disappointed. I actually I visited a Wagyu ranch, and a lot of people are, when Japan released Wagyu to start growing them in other countries, Australia, I think, was the first country, and they've kept it very purebred. When America got the green light to start growing Wagyu and shipping over bulls and, you know, and all, well, way to go, America. And now they're crossbreeding Wagyu with, you know, whatever common Angus or whatever. And so a lot of you know, now you're seeing Wagyu in Walmart. It's not real
Yes.
Wagyu. It's not real. It's crossbred. It's not real.
Ah.
It's not authentic. Sorry.
So
Costco
what's the
Wagyu
difference
is not
though?
real Wagyu. Oh
Costco
my
Wagyu.
gosh. Listen, I I've never tasted. I tasted the steak. Okay, I did. I seared it. I
Hmm.
brought one home. I seared it. Listen, little bit of salt and pepper. Sear it on both sides. Serve it rare, like sushi grade. Okay,
Mm.
it tastes like butter wrapped in olive oil, like with a silky texture. You don't even chew
Ooh.
it. It melts, Corey. It melts. It melts in your mouth. You don't even need a knife. Like, I mean, I got my, you know, fancy steak knife, and I mean, I just went whoop, like easy. Like it just, so they feed these cows. So, you know, they raise them, everything. They ultrasound them. They ultrasound the strip. The strip is located like in a little place on the back. They ultrasound them in the pasture till they get to a certain like thickness on that strip. And when they get there, then they pull them into the lot and they start feeding them olive mash from Italy.
I have heard this.
Yeah. They don't get
Ooh.
corn. They don't get grain. They get olive mash. Oh my gosh. I don't know. Maybe red wine. No, I don't know what they get, but I mean, they
Maybe red
eat like
wine.
kings. There's no common feed going in these animals whatsoever. There is never like an antibiotic, or they don't need them. They're naturally disease resistant because they're a heritage breed. I, I mean, and I've never tasted anything like it. It doesn't taste like beef. I mean, it does not taste like a cow. It's
Wow.
incredible. It's incredible.
Hmm.
We now here in North Louisiana have found Smith Family Farms and uh, um, Sample Farms and Mahaffey Farms. There's three in the
Hmm.
like a triangle area of us that they raise heritage breeds. And Sample, they're red. Oh my gosh, what are they called? Oh, I forgot the name of them, but it's a red cow. Kind of looks like an Angus, but smaller.
Hmm.
Unbelievable, unbelievable meat. I mean, just really good. Mahaffey, he does chickens, heritage breed chickens, completely organic, pasture raised. You know, you see, he bought a golf course and he basically raises it because the fairways. You know, he's using the
Yeah.
fairways to raise his chickens. And Smith, they're doing the same thing. You know, like they slaughter. So Smith actually has the slaughterhouse, and they raise their cows. They're able to slaughter them themselves, fully 100% government approved, you know, and Sample uses their slaughterhouse, you know, everything. And I mean, you talk about fresh, and Sample does the same thing. They only harvest like their, you know, what they need in the store at that time. Like they don't, you know, harvest 10 cows and stick them in the freezer and you get them, you know, a month, 2, 3, 4 months down the road.
Hmm.
No, it is so fresh. I
And
mean,
it
it's
looks
unbelievable. And the
different.
taste is so good. So good. Lee bought some, I don't know, gosh awful ground beef from the supermarket the other day. And it's just, oh, it stunk. I mean, I'm just like, what is that smell? That is not a normal smell. I said, is this what everybody like smells in their house? I mean, I was like, you gotta throw that out. You can't eat that. I mean, and I guess we've just been spoiled, but we were even telling our son, who's a deputy sheriff, listen, we spend less going and buying straight from the farmer than we do at the supermarket.
And that was
It's
my next question is like, how do you do that? Because like for most people, the most common issue is like going to a farmer's market or going to all these places to get like a Whole Foods or something. It's expensive. And so you also said that you spend less than you would going to like a grocery store.
mm-hmm.
So how do you do it?
Know what you're looking at. Uh, there's tons of websites out there. Oh gosh, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank, but there's local harvest will find you local farmers near you. And oh gosh, there's another one. I'm drawing a blank. We have them listed on our website. But usually your state will have like your producers, it'll have some sort of resource, but like local harvest.
Mhm.
Some states are better than others. I'm gonna just tell you. Okay, like in Tennessee, very readily available. Like everywhere you turned, you found a local farmer. I mean, you
Mhm.
just drove by them. I mean, they were just everywhere. The
Yeah.
farmers markets were extremely strict on who they let in and what products they let them bring. When we moved here, we were very disappointed because I went to the farmers market and I approached a vendor, and I mean, just common sense will tell you, when you go to the grocery store, all the tomatoes are perfect, the perfect sizes,
Hmm.
and look exactly the same, and your bell peppers and everything. If you've ever grown food or your grandmother grew food or what, listen, bell peppers are not all the same shape, and your tomatoes are dang sure not going to all be perfect and round and beautiful. Uh, I,
Hmm.
I look at them all the time and think, good gosh, you're ugly, but you taste good. But I'm like, I can't grow the perfect round tomato that doesn't have a little bug hole in it. But we've been so conditioned to buy things that look exactly the same and look pretty on the shelf, and just know when you go to a farmer's market and you see a vendor set up and their food looks like the supermarket food, they did not grow that themselves. Okay, when you see stuff
Mm.
that just doesn't look great and everything looks, they got 8 different colors of tomatoes, but they all came from the same bush, then it's a real tomato.
Yeah.
Um, Farm grown produce tastes so much better than anything in the
It does.
supermarket. And people tell me that all the time, that our stuff just tastes incredible. Um, but you kind of have to like buyer beware. You got to just know what you're getting. Um,
Hmm.
when you can find those local vendors, Facebook is a great resource. You can kind of look up, your local marketplace. Some people will have stuff, I noticed a lady down the road from me had purple whole peas that she was selling. She planted too many, and that's literally all she had, and that's all she was selling. Well, hey,
Yeah.
stock the freezer with them things. Like you can't beat that. Susie down
Yeah.
the street selling her peas. I mean, go buy her peas. Um, it's a little bit harder because we're so accustomed to now. I mean, literally, we order our groceries and drive up, and they bring them out to us. And I mean, life is so simple and so easy, and it's instant gratification. And unfortunately, you got to work a little harder to find good food. But
Yeah.
the consumer has power, and the more that you actually buy local and keep it out of the supermarket, then it gives local people actually more of a chance to build a presence in their community and start joining with other farmers. And there's this little shop in Arkansas that I absolutely loved. It's called Bell Urban Farm. It's in the middle of town. It's not a farm. It's a farm stand, but she opened a store that basically all the farmers that are outside the city limits, they bring all their stuff to her and she sells it for
Mm.
them. And I'm like, you're brilliant. You're brilliant. You're bringing
Yeah.
all the farmers together under one roof, but they don't have time to, take, they work sun up to sundown 7 days a week. They can't go sit, at the farmer's market.
Yeah.
Or,
Exactly.
they can't go sit on the side of the road or, I mean, some people can, some people can't, but, uh, just know that it gives more people like that an opportunity to supply people with, good, healthy food. Um, Smith is trying to do the same thing. Mahaffey's trying to do the same thing here locally for us. Like they're opening markets and Mahaffey sells my produce.
Yeah.
Smith sells my produce. I just take it up there to them and they're selling it for me. So I'm not direct to the vendor. I do have chefs that I sell to. Uh, we have a couple restaurants locally that have used some of my specialty products because they're hard to find and they're like, oh, that would be great on our menu.
Hmm.
And it's
And you
seasonal.
mentioned, yeah, and the seasonal thing. That's the what wanted to get to was because I've thought about this so many times of like starting a garden and eating seasonally, but I always hit a roadblock whenever I'm like, okay, we get to the end of summer, and it's like,
Whew.
what can you grow in Louisiana in the winter that you can actually eat on besides like potatoes or something? So how do you grow and eat seasonally if that's what you want to do?
Yeah. I actually plant a lot of my greens, lettuces, kale. Oh my gosh, garden kale is unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's not hard. Like I had a man the other day, last winter came up and I was, I had mustards and collards and I had purple mustards, which everybody was like, what the heck is
Mm.
that? It's purple. It's not supposed to be purple. And I'm like, yes, eat your colors, eat your rainbow. It's good for you. And I said, that's kale. And he goes, that doesn't look like kale. I said, that's garden kale. That in that
Mm.
supermarket, like hard stuff. And I broke him off and I said, try it. And he ate it and he goes, well, dang, I've been like hating on kale. He goes, that's good. And I was like, yes, it's fresh from the garden. Like it hasn't been shipped. And I don't even know what that is that they put in the supermarkets, but that's what I thought was kale, And the only thing I did was air fry it and make kale chips because he couldn't eat the stuff. And, but I'm like, oh, we have to eat kale. But then I started growing it and it'll grow. It'll grow in my garden all winter and it will grow through the spring to about end of May, and then it'll slow down. And I graze. I got it in all my planters, and so I'll water my plants, and I just graze. I just eat right out of my
Mm.
flower pots. Which I know it's probably horrible, but
Hey, you know where it came
like,
from.
I know, like I just break it off. Me and the goose, where she loves it. She loves kale. Um, but greens, you can do cauliflower. I did 3 colors of cauliflower. I did beets, carrots. Um, oh, what else have I got? Now we now have a high tunnel. It's not a true greenhouse because it's open air. It's just basically a big shade cloth, and
Mm-hmm.
it gives us a chance to, like, if it freezes, we can drop the sides and kind of keep some things in there. So I'm gonna try to grow peppers and tomatoes as far as much as I experiment. Is I'm actually going to try to grow some summer vegetables on, because we're hot really through what, January almost.
Yeah.
Um, I had peppers growing in my little greenhouse until January. I had fresh bell peppers, fresh jalapenos. They never slowed down until
Mm.
until January. And then actually pepper plants will come back year to year. If you cut them, like if you put them in a container and you cut them off,
Mm-hmm.
cover them, they'll pop right back up in the spring. A lot of people don't
Wow.
realize that they will come back if they're not just a hard freeze. Yeah, you can even set them in your garage during a hard freeze and they'll just come back next year.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've got pepper plants now I'm working on their third year with them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Man, well,
Yep.
I've so enjoyed this, Alicia. Is there, I guess, a message that you would want to leave folks with?
Whew. Oh my gosh. Um, you know, take care of yourself. Nobody's going to do it for you. Be as educated as you can be. The educated consumer literally does have all the power, especially in our country. What what the dollar buys is what people are going to put on the shelves, and as long as we buy junk, that's what's going to be on our supermarket shelves. So
Mm,
I do believe in food. I do believe in body, mind, and spirit, and it all works together. Every bit of it. You know, God created us to enjoy life. He also created us to be smart and educated and healthy. You know, so
yeah,
to go live fit, man.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you for being on here, Alicia.
Thanks, Corey. This was fun.
Yeah. Well, I will talk to you later.
All right. See you, friend.
Bye.